Welcome to a discussion on the control of nuisance animals in the garden and landscape. My name is Phil Rodebush. I'm an Extension Master Gardener volunteer in Buncombe County, North Carolina, a retired veterinarian, and a certified Blue Ridge naturalist through the North Carolina Arboretum. I enjoy talking about nuisance animals in the garden because of my background and long-term interest in gardening, veterinary medicine, and natural history. This presentation will focus on large mammals, those that I have arbitrarily defined as having an adult weight between 20 and 100 pounds. This presentation is part of a series of 9 gardening videos on nuisance animals that also includes information on the other topics that are listed here. If you're having problems with another specific type of animal, you may want to watch one or more of these other videos. All these videos can be found on the Buncombe County Master Gardener website, which is buncombe-mastergardener.org. So let's get started. We're going to talk about, in this presentation, coyote, fox, raccoon, beaver, and the domestic dog. So we'll begin with coyotes and foxes. They're oftentimes thought of as carnivores, but they're what we call opportunist eaters, which means that they will certainly eat meat, but they will feed heavily on vegetation in the summer. And that can include sweet corn, beans, apples, cherries, plums, grapes and melons, acorns, grasses, persimmons, blackberries, and pokeweed fruit. Management usually means storing pet food, bird food, and garbage inside or in sealed containers that can't be opened, immobilize garbage cans and secure lids. You can use fencing using 2-inch mesh wire fence at least 4 feet high and going 6 inches below ground because they can burrow, and oftentimes an electrified strand will be helpful. No repellents seem to be helpful or recommended for coyote and foxes, and they are fur-bearing animals, so hunting or trapping licenses are required if you're going to use that method of management. And information about hunting and trapping can be found at the website for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, which is ncwildlife.org. Raccoons are omnivores that are nocturnal, and their preference is for snails, frogs, insects, small mammals. They like access to garbage, bird food, birds themselves, eggs, pet food, acorns, nuts, and fruits. And they will sometimes cause deprivation in the garden with garden vegetables as well. And preferred garden vegetables include melons, sweet corn, and tomatoes. You can often tell by the type of deprivation that occurs that it's a raccoon. They are especially fond of melons and pumpkins as well. And because they have prehensile hands that are very similar to ours, what you'll see with a melon is there'll be a very small hole, and then the inside of the melon has been completely removed, and the raccoon makes a small hole, puts their hand and arm inside the melon and completely hollows it out and eats that and leaves the rind behind. And if you see that type of depredation on a melon, more than likely it is a raccoon. Management includes always feeding pets indoors, store pet food, bird food, and garbage inside or in a sealed container that can't be opened, immobilize garbage cans and secure their lids. Again, exclusion with 2-inch mesh wire fences. They're good climbers, so electrified strands are helpful. I've had raccoons on my second-story deck and on the roof of my home, so they are very, very good climbers. Again, no repellents are really recommended or found to be effective, and they are also fur-bearing animals, so a hunting or trapping license is required. A personal story, I was having problems with raccoons in my garden for a number of years, and I had a neighbor who was feeding a couple of outdoor feral cats. She left a bowl of cat food out for the cat, and I was very suspicious that the raccoons were coming around every evening to feast on that cat food. And while they were in the neighborhood and going through my yard, they were causing problems. That neighbor left and moved somewhere else, and she captured and took the cats with her. And when that outdoor source of cat food was no longer available, my raccoon issues went away. So again, just emphasizes the need to not leave pet food outdoors, especially at night. Again, put on my hat as a veterinarian. These are data over a 4-year period of time of the positive cases of rabies in North Carolina. And what you see, which is similar for the entire eastern seaboard of the United States, is the raccoon is the #1 carrier of rabies in our part of the country. So if you see a raccoon out during the day, if you see it acting strangely, don't approach it and call the local animal control agency. Beavers are the largest North American rodent. You can see from this picture of the skull that they have very large and sharp incisors on both their upper and lower jaw. They will eat both woody and non-woody vegetation, but they primarily cause damage by flooding landscapes or gnawing on native trees. Beavers are an important normal part of a good healthy ecosystem, and they're important for maintaining marsh environments in North Carolina, but they can certainly be a nuisance. Management: no repellents appear to be effective, but you can protect individual trees next to waterways with a 36-inch high fence of rigid welded wire, usually with 4-inch or smaller mesh. And if you do that, you will probably want to leave at least 2 to 3 inches between the fence and the tree to account for later growth of the tree. Most beaver cuttings occur within 50 feet of water, although they may travel up to 200 feet on land, and so you may need to protect trees within 200 feet of a waterway. Another method that's purported to work is what's called sand paint. You can paint with sand, and you put 8 ounces of fine sand, the kind of sand that you might put in a children's sandbox, per quart of oil or latex paint. Stir it thoroughly and often, and you paint the trunk of the tree about 4 feet high. And the nice thing is you can color code the paint to match the tree bark. This individual is using white paint on a white aspen tree. Probably doesn't work quite as well as fencing, but it'd be certainly something that you might want to use for aesthetics. Beavers are considered a fur bearer and game mammal. They may be trapped and taken during prescribed trapping seasons. And again, if you want more information about that, you can go to the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission website. The North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission also has a beaver management assistance program. So if you are a property owner and you're having extensive damage from beaver, they can sometimes help and have an assistance program, not only financially help, but give you resources to help with control of the nuisance beaver. Domestic dogs are omnivores, and they will eat a variety of fruits and vegetables, so they can sometimes be a nuisance. Over the years, I've mainly had miniature schnauzers as pets, and the schnauzers I found have had an interest in grapes when I was growing grapes, tomatoes, and would also follow me out to the compost pile when I was taking materials from the kitchen and putting that on the compost pile, and would dig in the compost pile given the opportunity. Grapes are a specific note because domestic dogs oftentimes will eat grapes if they're available as plantings in the yard. But grapes can be highly toxic to dogs. They contain a high level of tartaric acid and potassium bitartrate, and those can cause acute kidney damage and acute kidney failure in dogs, which can be a fatal condition. As few as 10 to 14 grapes or a quarter cup of raisins in a 20-pound dog can be toxic. So when I had a schnauzer that liked to eat the grapes, I needed to fence those off when the grapes became ripe. So that's it for the medium-sized mammals. We talked about coyotes, foxes, raccoon, beaver, and the domestic dog, and hopefully gave you some tips about controlling them if they become a nuisance in your garden or landscape. If you need other help or have questions, in Buncombe County, the Garden Helpline is available during the growing season from March through October, either by phone or in person at the Extension office. Probably one of the best ways to submit questions is to use the email buncomemg@gmail.com. The nice thing about email is not only can you submit your question, but you can submit pictures of pets or plants or plant damage that's related to your question. Thanks for joining me today, and happy gardening.